I'm Chad Douglas. Our parent company, Sinclair Broadcasting and KHQA, continue to work for you, keeping you informed on complex political issues facing our country, especially with Election Day just a couple months away. We continue our Connect to Congress initiative right now with Congressman Darin LaHood of Illinois. He joins us via satellite in Washington, D.C. Hello to you, Congressman.
Hey, Chad. Great to be with you and your viewers today.
Glad you were here. Well, today, Vice President Joe Biden is joining the Democrats to call on Congress to act on Zika and other issues. The House is in session in D.C. for about another 8 weeks before the end of the year. What do you think are the most important issues you believe Congress needs to address before the end of the year?
Well, unfortunately, I think the Vice President and a number of the Democrats are playing politics with Zika. On June 23rd, the House of Representatives, in a bipartisan way, passed Zika funding. We've passed a bill, $1.1 billion for Zika. That passed the House of Representatives, went over to the Senate. The Senate now 3 different times has derailed the bill because of politics. And so it's very, very frustrating, Chad, as somebody that voted on this and wants to see the funding allocated, to not have this done. I thought our bill that we passed was, again, a very fiscally responsible bill. It's leftover funding from Ebola, about $600 billion. $600 million that would go to fund Zika. And unfortunately, just this week, the Senate Democrats, Harry Reid in particular, I think is playing politics. They want to make this an election year issue. This shouldn't be about elections. This shouldn't be about politics. This should be about getting funding to the folks in Florida and our southern border to get the proper funding that they need. And unfortunately, the Democrats are playing politics with it.
So do you think you'll have a resolution by the end of the month on Zika funding and maybe any other threats to the U.S.?
Well, listen, I think the Senate could vote maybe today or tomorrow on the Zika funding, the $1.1 billion. I hope they do that. That's what I've advocated for. I think that's what's best for the country. And so I'm going to continue to work with my Republican colleagues to make sure that we get the funding done. We've done our part in the House, and we're going to continue to do that. I hope the Democrats will do the same. We shouldn't be playing politics with Zika funding. I'll also mention to you, Chad, there's about $600 million that was left over from Ebola that the administration can use right now. They have not done that yet. They can do that on their own authority to do that. Holding that back is politics. That shouldn't be the case. We should do this in a bipartisan way like we did in the House on June 23rd when I supported that. I'm going to continue to advocate for that.
All right, switching gears now. This Sunday, Congressman, marks the 15-year anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks on the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and of course, Flight 93 in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. What would you like to say to your constituents in remembrance of that day?
Well, listen, we're 15 years to 9/11 since we had the tragedy. And this is a couple things I would mention to you. We got to remember the tragic events that occurred on 9/11/2001. Remember the victims, almost 3,000 people that lost their lives and the families affected by that. We also need to remember the first responders and all of the people that helped on that tragic day. But the other part of it is we have to remain vigilant in this country. We have to remain vigilant to terrorist attacks. And with ISIS out there and other terrorist activities that have occurred, think about what happened in France when the truck killed 80 people. Think about what happened in San Bernardino. Think about what happened in Orlando, in Belgium, in France. There are way too many incidents of terrorism out there, not to the level of 9/11, but we have to be vigilant and remember there are elements out there that want to harm America. So when we remember 9/11, it's paying homage and really honoring the folks that died on that day, but remembering that we have to continue to support our military, support our intelligence services, have really common sense immigration, particularly as it relates to Syrian refugees and refugees that come from countries that are involved with terrorist activities. We cannot let up on this right now. On Sunday, 9/11, I'll be participating in my district in 2 different 9/11 events with our military, again, to honor those that died on that day. We can never forget what occurred then, and again, we got to use this experience to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again in our country.
Finally, this morning, as you've seen, the Wall Street Journal reported that the $400 million cash leverage payment was only the first of 3 cash payments that the Obama administration have offered. 2 more will follow the release of the prisoners, totaling $1.2 billion. In your opinion, will this be something the House gets involved with, and do you think it should be?
Well, I think clearly the fact that the Wall Street Journal had to announce this, that this didn't come from the administration, that $400 million in cash was given to the Iranians and there's going to be 2 more payments, this is what makes people distrustful of government, particularly this administration. I think, Chad, it's foolish to engage with a regime that is a state sponsor of terrorism. I think it's reckless in many ways. The appeasement that we have to Iran that continues to violate all of the international norms, I just don't understand it. And the lack of transparency with this $400 million in cash, why didn't the administration announce this was going on? Why did it have to be done in a secret way, loading up a plane with $400 million in cash and sending that to Iran? Again, that perplexes me. Absolutely, we have an obligation in the House, bring people before a hearing, put them under oath, and get answers to this. The American people want answers on this. Iran continues to circumvent and also obstruct our objectives in in Syria, in Iraq, in many places in the Middle East, against everything we believe in. And frankly, I don't know how we can continue to engage them and appease them when they continue to violate rule, violate sanctions, violate anything that's put forth by the UN or Western Europe. So we need to have hearings, which we will in the month of September, to get some answers from officials on this. I think people and myself, I know, are very, very frustrated by that, why we continue to engage with Iran.
All right. Well, Congressman Darin LaHood, we appreciate your time. We know you are a busy fellow. We'll let you get back to work. Thanks.
Thank you, Chad.